Something big is brewing in Houston because the Texans have quietly been stacking visits at cornerback. And if that tells you one thing, it means they're not satisfied just yet with the secondary. And when a team starts making moves like this, you have to pay attention because these additions could bring serious depth into the defensive back room. So, who are these guys and what could they really bring? We're going to talk about that in today's episode. Welcome back to another video of Texans Digest. I'm your host, Russell Raunam. I'm so happy you guys could sit down and take a minute to watch the video today. Hope you had a wonderful Easter yesterday spent with friends and family. And we got a little bit of a Texans Digest egg here. We're going to spin this around just a little bit. We got the horns on there. I thought it came out pretty well. Just a fun little Easter tradition my family always likes to do is just dyeing eggs and stuff. So we'll have that at the desk really all year long until the egg kind of dies down on us. But I want to say, before we get any further along into the video, I want to say a quick shout out to our sponsor, as Texans Digest is now sponsored by Prizepicks. So Prizepicks is America's #1 sports pick'em app. It actually gives the opportunity for fans to get right into the action. You have baseball, basketball, football, esports, plenty of stuff that you can mess around with on the app. And then if you use code DIGEST when you're signing up, you'll actually be able to get some bonus funds that you can use to decide more or less on players' projections and see if you can win a little bit of extra money in your pocket. So I'm going to have some picks for you guys later on in the episode, along with the link down in the description. And it's a great app. I highly suggest you guys check it out. But thank you guys so much to Prizepicks for sponsoring today's video. As we get a little bit further on into the episode, we're going to talk about really just two guys. One is going to be Keionte Scott. The Texans announced that they are going to be bringing him on a top 30 visit, amongst other guys they've already taken visits on. But when we take a look at Keionte Scott's stats, he played a few years at Auburn, and then he transferred to Miami, where he blew up and really shined on the nation's biggest stage. Performing great all throughout the CFP, and then played really well in the the championship, the national championship as well. So when we take a look at his stats, he did okay at Auburn. He's always played in the slot, so being able to gain a lot of tackles on outside runs or quarterback pressures. Had 50 tackles his first season, then had a little bit less, 44, and then had a little bit of issues with playing time in 2024. Still getting a couple tackles for losses there and one interception his first season, but then in Miami, he really got a chance to shine and be on the field as much as possible. He had 64 total combined tackles, along with a staggering 13 tackles for losses. So that's really just unheard of for anyone in the secondary. And Miami used him as a big blitzer coming from that nickel slot. And that shows as well with 5 sacks. So it just is very impressive in his game that he's able to drop back in coverage when needed, but also, rush the passer effectively. I mean, 5 sacks is no joke for a defensive lineman even. And then to be in the secondary being a slot blitzer, it's very good. And, also, totaling 2 interceptions that he took both of those back for pick sixes, and then getting 2 forced fumbles and recovering both of those fumbles as well. It just speaks volume to his game and that he can really do it all. And it, would be a great kind of like Swiss Army knife for the Houston Texans, as Keionte Scott can play, in that nickel slot right at the line of scrimmage, or he can play in the back in the safety, really exactly how the Texans have been using Jalen Pitre. And Scott can really learn from Pitre as well, and, dissecting both of their games and really swarm to the ball. As when you take a look at a little bit more of Keionte Scott's physicals, he ran a 4.33 at his pro day. There are some reports of him running even faster, but we're just going to go with the official number, and which ranked 99th percentile for his position group. It says right here he had a 34-inch vertical. He actually had a 44-inch vertical, which is just freakish. That would rank #1 across the entire secondary at the NFL Combine. 20-yard split, 10-yard split looked great as well. His height, being 5'10 and a half, and the weight sub 200. That's pretty average for nickel cornerbacks. You're not going to be getting the biggest guy. You're going to want guys who can keep up with receivers in the slot who are just about the same height as that, being able to, cut left and right very quick, and, being very mobile to the ball and keeping their eyes on the quarterback. Scott fits, all those parameters great, and benchmarks that, you really value what could be a true great nickel cornerback in the NFL. And when we lastly, just look at his PFF grade, got a 90.5, which actually ranked 3rd of all corners. So it's just someone who performed on a weekly basis. Every single Saturday he came to play. And while he is 25 years old, a little bit older than maybe what you'd want for average draft target age. He's still going to be great on the defensive ball and really, really active with this Texans defense that we already know is so great. The other corner that the Texans have been looking at is no other than Martin Emerson Jr. He was a standout guy his rookie season with the Cleveland Browns, and then played a little bit worse after 2024. He started only 6 games in his rookie season 2022. Started just about every single one of them in 2023, where he actually ended up getting 4 interceptions as well that season, just playing great ball. And then 2024, he was getting a little picked apart. Nothing crazy, but definitely a little bit of a decline after you're coming off 4 interceptions and, starting to get your feet wet with starting every single game. And then at the start of the 2025 season in training camp, he actually tore his Achilles and missed the entire year. So with the Browns having success with Denzel Ward and Campbell, it was really something that he just didn't fit, in the future of Cleveland. And Browns general manager Andrew Berry actually harped on that. He said, selfishly, I would love to have him back. I think we're realistic with the MJ and the injury that he's coming off of. He's got to be in a position where he can maybe have a strong opportunity to compete for a starting spot. There's probably a little bit harder with how we've configured Denzel and Tyson, but certainly if that changes, we'd love to have him back. So obviously when you can't retain someone in the secondary, but your general manager is first to say, we'd love to have him back, that speaks volume for who you are. And he was just really kind of in a tough situation, improving with the emergence of Tyson Campbell and Denzel Ward playing at a Pro Bowl level just about every single season. It just didn't fit for him in that position group, but he would be great for the Texans and on a very cheap contract. It's projected for him to only be about a $1.5 to $2 million deal. He played for 3 seasons. He played for 3 seasons. For the Browns coming out of Mississippi State, SEC ball. Very good in the league when he was there, and he'd be a great starter. The secondary for the Houston Texans is still fairly young. When we take a look at their entire depth chart, we've signed Reed Blankenship. I'll blow this up a little bit bigger for you guys. We signed Reed Blankenship for the safety position from Philadelphia. You have in Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter on both sides of the ball for cornerbacks. But in Kalen Bullock, while he's starting at strong safety, I don't think that would change anywhere. But being able to get Keionte Scott, sit behind Jalen Pitre in the nickelback position, and really, still have flexibility at any left or right cornerback if needed. And then for Martin Emerson, really to sit behind Jalen Smith and be that third cornerback, or at least compete for that third cornerback spot, is something that the Texans would be very intrigued about for a cheap price of $1.5 million. If it doesn't work out, well, there's not really much of a gamble with it, simply due to the fact that you got him for such a cheap deal. And now, with the Texans, it's interesting because they don't blitz hardly at all. They actually were ranked 32nd in the NFL in terms of blitzing because they have such a dominant front 7 and 2 pass rushers in Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, that they have the ability to drop back 7 and play great defense and rely on those guys getting to the quarterback and, letting the secondary clean up some interceptions or easy pass breakups. And I think Keionte Scott could be someone the Texans could easily draft maybe in the 3rd round. I mean, they're having him for a visit. He's obviously on the radar and, gives the opportunity to blitz heavily off the slot and really attack the quarterback and just make the Texans that much harder to defend it or to pass against, because you never know when you have a speedy guy who runs a 4.33 coming off the edge and blowing things up. And then with Martin Emerson, you have that veteran presence that could be out wide. There's no reason why we couldn't get both of these guys, but I don't see the Texans really getting one. We still have great starters in the secondary position, and this would be purely for depth, or if an injury takes place, getting these guys thrust into the starting role, make sure they have full trust on them. But what do you guys think? Would you like to see the Texans get either one of these guys? It's worth noting that the Texans actually are averaging about a 90%. When they get these guys on visits, they're going to become Houston Texans. So we've talked about a few of these other guys, Caden Proctor, Caden McDonald, Emmanuel Pregnon, to really name a few. There's a few others like Keionte Scott that joined the list as of late. Caleb Douglas being the most recent, kind of a quick, speedy receiver out of Texas Tech. So it's a great track record with Nick Caserio and the Houston Texans organization that if they're coming in for a visit, not only on their board, but they might be their first overall selection if the pick comes to them and they're still on that big board. So I'm very interested to see what the Texans do with Keionte Scott. He's visiting the Chicago Bears and the Washington Commanders later on this week. And he's also visiting the Miami Dolphins on a local visit later on in this week as well, being from Miami. So it'll just be very interesting to see. I would love to sign Martin Emerson or Keionte Scott to either one to the team and just provide that depth for the Texans. As you know, the secondary is very elite and performing at a very great clip, but they are still fairly young. And while I think Reed Blankenship could be a good veteran presence as well, it never hurts to get another guy, for that veteran minimum contract. So, and then just to go over the picks we had selected for you guys with our sponsor Prizepicks, link down in the description to sign up. I really think this Texans offense is going to explode this year. I like CJ Stroud and David Montgomery to go more than on their projected stat lines. CJ Stroud, just about 3,600 pass yards, and David Montgomery, 775 rush yards. I really just like them to, benefit off one another, being able to not stack the box because you have the skill position players like Nico Collins, Xavier Hutchinson, and Tank Dell, giving CJ Stroud, good matchups to throw the ball to. And then because they got to guard those receivers, giving the chance for David Montgomery to really almost run wild and not, have to go against heavy 6-7 guys in the box set. So, and then on the others end, Jahmyr Gibbs, now that we know David Montgomery is out of the picture, and someone that, could maybe gobble up some of those red zone touchdowns, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to soar in this role and, have all the goal line work. Therefore, more than 12.5 rushing touchdowns on the season, I think is a good look as well. So locking that in, $20 for 120 over the course of the entire NFL season. I think it's a very good likely chance that it could happen. But I just want to say thank you guys for tuning in to today's video. Subscribe to the channel for more Texans content. Leave a like, comment down below. What do you think of these guys? Do you think Martin Emerson Jr. or Keionte Scott would be good fits for the Houston Texans? Or is there someone else in the NFL draft you really think the Texans should keep their eye on? I'd love to hear you guys' comments down below. But stay tuned for some more videos this week touching on more top 30 visits and how they go, and maybe some more guys that league sources have announced the Texans are really trying to keep their eye on, as we're just 2-3 weeks away from the NFL draft taking place. But thank you guys for watching today's episode, and peace out.